Hello and welcome back to the Phantom Fuel Podcast. I'm RJ and I'm back for episode 5. I cannot believe we've hit our 5th episode. I need to thank those who have helped set up, advertise, edit, and more. A huge shout out to the recently promoted Major Vu for making the edits and making each episode sound great. The Spark team for initiating this podcast idea, and Chief Ruby for leading the team. And thank you to the listener. That's you. We have so much more to do, and this is only episode 5. I don't want to forget, and I gotta say thank you, a huge thank you to our past co-hosts, James and Jarrell. You are both incredible voices on the show. Your insight, your energy, and your commitment made those episodes special, and I'm so grateful to have shared the mic with you. And hey, if you're listening and thinking, I can do that, then we want to hear from you. We're looking for more co-hosts and guest voices to join the podcast. Just click on the feedback link in the show notes and let us know who you are, how to reach you, and that you're interested in joining the conversation. If your squadron also did something that deserves recognition or should be highlighted, well, we can do that too in this podcast. Now let's talk about what's coming up in today's episode. Later on in the episode, we will be talking about great things around the Nebraska National Guard, some tips around safety, and events coming up. But until then, let's get into a great conversation with Brigadier General Hargens and Senior Master Sergeant Eddy to talk about the General's journey, the evolving mission of the Nebraska National Guard, and how the national defense strategy is shaping our future. This one's packed with experience, leadership, and a forward-focusing vision. Let's jump in right here.
The views expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Air Force, Air National Guard, Nebraska Air National Guard, Nebraska National Guard, or any government agency.
Welcome to the Phantom Fuel Podcast. Today, I have the Assistant Adjutant General to the Nebraska Air National Guard, General Hargens. I am Senior Master Sergeant Kyle Eddy with the Recruiting and Retention Team. So we're just going to kind of run through some questions, discuss your vision of the Nebraska Air National Guard. I hopefully have some great questions. I am very fortunate with you that I get to hear straight from the Assistant Adjutant General the direction of the Nebraska Air National Guard, how we're contributing. And I think this is going to be pretty powerful to be able to talk directly to our airmen on your strategic priorities, how we support the national defense strategy, and just the world in general. So I guess to start, sir, can I just get a background of your professional career thus far?
Absolutely. So I initially joined the military back in 1987. I was a college student, and I started by joining the United States Marine Corps. I was commissioned 3 years later when I graduated, so commissioned as second lieutenant. I went to Quantico, Virginia for 6 months of basic Marine officer training, followed by naval aviator training down at Pensacola, Florida. When I got my wings, I was selected to fly Cobra helicopters, so I transferred out to Camp Pendleton, California, where I learned how to fly the Cobra, and then I was assigned to the Fleet Marine Force, HMLA 367 there at Camp Pendleton for the next several years. Had the opportunity to deploy multiple times with the Marines. One of those was with the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, and then after several years in the fleet, transferred down to Joint Reserve Base Belle Chase, which is a Joint Reserve Base just outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, and I was assigned as the active duty pilot instructing at the Reserve Squadron there. So for me, that was a great opportunity to kind of get to see what the Guard and Reserve was like. And my wife and I are both from Nebraska at the time. We had 3 children, and I was kind of just looking for a little bit more stability and an opportunity to get back to home. So I came home for my cousin's wedding, and I stopped by the Guard unit. I knew about the Guard growing up, and they happened to be hiring pilots at the time, so I put in an application. I was selected, and then I resigned from the Marine Corps and joined the Nebraska Air National Guard in 1999. They sent me down to fixed-wing qualification training down at Vance Air Force Base, then to 135 training at Altus Air Force Base, and then I came back here and was assigned to the operations group. Did a number of different jobs in the operations group. Spent some time as the wing chief of safety. Was also the civil engineer squadron commander, the air refueling squadron commander, Did a tour over here at Joint Force Headquarters as the Director of Staff and the Vice Chief of the Joint Staff, then back to the wing, where I was assigned as the Maintenance Group Commander, followed by Vice Wing Commander, and then Wing Commander. I hit my mandatory separation date as a colonel, so I retired on January 1st of 2021, and then there was a position that opened up here at the headquarters, so I applied for that, was selected as the Assistant Adjutant General, so I came back into the Nebraska Air National Guard, and I've been in this position ever since. So I spent most of my career really as a full-time military member, but on the civilian side, things I've done here over the last several years, I've also served as an executive pastor. I've been a part-time commercial pilot for Duncan Aviation, and then I also operate my family farm just north of Lincoln here.
Awesome. And when you separated after being the wing commander and you had that break going on being a civilian, what were some things you missed about the Guard, and why did you come back into this position?
You know, I really missed being part of a team. You really miss the people. It's all I'd really known my whole life. And at that point in my life, I really was not really ready to give up the military. So it was an incredible opportunity to come back and just continue being part of a team. And also you look at the challenges that we see in the world that faces us right now. We really have a great opportunity to make a difference in the world.
Awesome. And then personally, you started to allude to it a little bit. So I've been able to know you a little bit, just what you discuss on your personal side. So you're assistant pastor, do the family farm, obviously a big family person, but what are some things within your personal life you'd like to share?
I was incredibly fortunate. I have wonderful, loving, encouraging parents. So I grew up here. As I said, my parents' family farm is just about a mile north of the runway. So growing up, got to watch the F-4s making their final turn over my house on drill weekends. That's kind of what piqued my interest in the aviation a little bit, just being around airplanes. So I grew up, as a farm kid. I went to the University of Nebraska where I got a construction management degree, and then I also have a Master of Engineering degree from the university as well. Been married to my lovely wife, Kelly, for over 31 years. We went to the same high school together. We've got 6 children. My oldest 3 daughters are married. I have an older son who just completed a 4-year enlistment in the Marine Corps. Just came back to Nebraska, and then I have 2 younger children, a son and a daughter. They're in 6th and 8th grade, and go to Malcolm as well. And then I've also here over just past couple of years, I also now have 3 beautiful little granddaughters as well. So that's been a real joy to our lives here lately. And then we live on an acreage out by Branch Oak Lake.
And that's where the family farm is, right? Where you're
Yes.
still at. Okay, so switching gears to the professional side. So as the Assistant Adjutant General, everyone sees that you're general. They see your star. They know of you being our change of command. But what does that mean? What's the role of the Assistant Adjutant General?
So the states can be arranged a little bit differently as far as what the typical roles of the Assistant Adjutant General are. But here in Nebraska, as the ATAG, I serve as the commander of the Nebraska Air National Guard militarily. So all roughly 1,100 airmen that we have from the 155th Air Refueling Wing here in Lincoln, the 170th Group at Offutt, and then the air staff at Joint Force Headquarters all fall under my command. I report directly to the Adjutant General, which is Major General Craig Strong. He reports to our Commander-in-Chief, Governor Pillen. And then General Strong is a member of his cabinet and also directs the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency. So I'm General Strong's primary advisor on all things air for Nebraska. The ATAG is a drill status guardsman position, so it's really given me kind of a fresh perspective on some of the demands and the challenges that we ask of our part-time force, which makes up 2/3 of the Nebraska Air National Guard.
And I've been able to watch you and General Strong go back and forth, but having an Army tag that you directly report to, what are some unique things and how you can advise them as the AAG?
We really have very different cultures between the Army and the Air National Guard, and even just with the different mission sets that we have, there's kind of a different focus when it comes to, training and things like that. There's other areas where we're cut from the same cloth. We're all Nebraskans. We all want to accomplish a mission the same way. We want to work hard. We want to do those things. So I think it's really just helping him understand, some of those cultural difference, and then how we can best utilize the different strengths in the different areas that we're challenged with.
Okay, so looking at just the National Guard, specifically the Air National Guard and the Nebraska Air National Guard, what is our overall purpose? So it's easy to see when we come out here to drill and we're doing our job, but from your perspective, what's the purpose of the Air National Guard and the Nebraska Air National Guard?
So our mission is to prepare and deliver air power to defend the homeland, deter our adversaries, and build the force. We are members of the profession of arms, so warrior ethos, that laser focus on lethality and readiness, the Air Force core values of integrity first, service for self, excellence in all we do, really serve as the foundation to ensure that we're postured to defend and serve both our nation and state, regardless of any of the challenges that may come before us.
And we'll start getting into a little bit of the national defense strategy. I know that is your focus as the adjutant or the assistant adjutant general within the Nebraska Air National Guard. What are our three priorities that have came from you to support the national defense strategy?
So last year, we actually released the strategic plan for the Nebraska Air National Guard. So it really outlines my three priorities under three different lines of effort, which are nested within the national defense strategy, as you pointed out, and then also aligned with the Adjutant General's strategic priorities. So that first line of effort is defend the homeland. So we need to be ready and able to project, employ, and sustain air power and ready airmen. So really that falls under two different categories. The first of that is readiness. So individual readiness, things like training, medical and physical fitness, unit readiness, training that comes along with that, and then really the readiness to do our domestic operations mission, which is critically important to the National Guard as well. And then the second part of that is our ability to project forces. So responding in a Title 32 status where those are disasters here in Nebraska or elsewhere in the United States, or our ability to deploy abroad, whether that's deployments or emerging requirements that occur. The first one that I mentioned was defend the homeland. The second line of effort that we have is going to be deterring our adversaries. So ensuring that we have these relevant capabilities that are optimized for this great power competition, that we're organized and convince our adversaries that it's not worth the cost of challenging our nation. So, when we look at deterrence, it really falls under a couple of different areas as well. It's manpower and resources, ensuring that we're organized and equipped properly. It's mission capability. We have the KC-135, which has been a fantastic airframe that has been flying for almost 7 decades now, and it's going to be relevant into the future. So ensuring that our aircraft are continually able to meet new challenges that lie ahead, but we also look at other mission sets. So maybe the KC-46. Now that's projected to end production here in about another 2 years. So if it's not the KC-46, there's going to be a next generation tanker. So what do some of those opportunities look like? The second part of mission capability or second area would be potential growth at Offutt. We've been able to expand that mission significantly. We've added a couple of new squadrons here over the past couple of years that we're recruiting to. And then the third opportunity is really with some other centers of excellence. So we have University of Nebraska Medical Center here in Nebraska, which has some incredible capability. So we're looking at some opportunities that we can capitalize in a partnership with them to really take advantage of some of those capabilities and apply them to the military. And then the third part of that is demonstrating capability. So this weekend we have a nuclear operational readiness exercise that the wing is doing. We're demonstrating that strategic nuclear capability to our adversaries who are watching. And then the third line of effort is building the force. So growing as part of the total force to enable warfighting, homeland support, and strategic partnerships. So a couple of different aspects to building the force. First one that you're incredibly familiar with is recruiting and retention. And you hear a lot about some of the challenges that the military has had. That's the TAG's number one priority, but we're incredibly fortunate here in Nebraska. You and your team have done an amazing job. And we haven't just recruited to what we've actually expanded our mission set and brought additional people into the Nebraska Air National Guard. So really an incredible success story that reflects on some of the amazing things that your folks are doing. Second part of that, organizational excellence. So family readiness, resiliency, leadership development, all those things that we have to ensure that we've got a force that's capable of meeting those challenges. managing resources, looking at efficiencies through things like innovation. I think actually this podcast is a result of our innovation program. We got very involved in innovation when it first kind of started becoming popular, when the Air Force went to the new inspection system. Our IG at the time really started incorporating some innovation, and we've been able to really take that to the next level and do some amazing things. I'm hopeful maybe this podcast will actually do an innovation section here down the road and can kind of highlight some of the amazing things that we've been doing. And then the fourth part of that is partnerships, where really our partners are force multipliers. So we're those centers of excellence, whether it's at the local, the national, the international level, that we can partner with. So those are really the three lines of effort.
So within your lines of effort, and we went more into detail on that, so I think that does help out. But within your lines of effort, how does that relate down to the airmen at the lowest levels? So when they see defend, deter, and build, how does that impact, or what are the things our airmen should be focused on in support of that at the very tactical level?
So when you look at what's going on in the world right now, I went to a briefing a while back, and they said right now we are probably in some of the most consequential 10 years of geopolitical history that we've ever seen. You know, the National Defense Strategy, we're not a two-war force anymore. There's just not enough resources to go around. So we're going to be smaller. We have to be more capable. The way we present forces is changing. The Nebraska Air National Guard, we've transformed from a strategic reserve to an operational force. You know, but the Air National Guard is 40% the cost, and we're twice as experienced as our active duty counterparts. You know, and tanker and ISR missions that we conduct here in the state are really used in just about everything that happens. So really for our airmen, just understanding the importance of the missions that we're constantly doing, how important they are to everything that's happening throughout the world, and then really just ensuring you have a warrior mentality. You give us your best, you train hard, and you meet or exceed standards. It's really pretty simple when we think about what it means to be ready.
Awesome. We'll go into readiness here a little bit because I want to talk about some of those things I've had the opportunity to see. But I guess just to set the stage for the world stage, I mean, we have Russia, Ukraine. We have Iranian proxies within the Middle East. We have Israel, Hamas. We have North Korea. We have China. So we look at all of these different news story every night going on. From your position and from your eyes, what do you see when you see these different world events happening?
You know, I think it's really an opportunity for us to just understand how important the role of the National Guard is. When I first came into the National Guard, we were still a strategic component. And so it was one of those things where operationally the Guard was at times kind of an afterthought. You know, 9/11 changed that significantly for us, and we've grown to the point now where there's nothing that happens in the world that doesn't utilize Guard forces as part of it. So it's really just highlights the important role that we have. You know, the Joint Chiefs of Staff used to not have a Guard member. They now have a 4-star Guard member as part of that. The gentleman who's been going to be nominated to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has some Guard experience. So it really highlights just how integrated the Guard has become in all the things that are going on around the world.
And then from our airman's perspective, and I feel like I remember when I was a young airman, and I see these world events, but I don't think that I'm having an impact on everything going on. And your second strategic goal is deter. And so I think it plays into that. But how do our airmen actually impact what's going on, even though they're still in Nebraska, they're still doing their full-time business out of here? How do they still impact that?
So, you know, one of the examples I alluded to was our nuclear mission. And so that's a mission that's exercised periodically, and our adversaries are watching those exercises when they occur, and that sends a message regarding readiness. Our deployments that we participate in right now, we've got folks literally deployed all around the world, and they're participating in exercises. We continuously participate in exercises in pretty much all the theaters out there. And so this upcoming summer, there's going to be a huge exercise in PACOM, which we're a part of as well. And the whole goal of that exercise is to bring all of these partners together in very large-scale exercise really to send a message to our adversaries as to what our capabilities are in that theater.
When I hear the commander speak, when I hear you speak, the squadron commanders wherever around the state, readiness, right? Colonel Hess is one of his priorities is readiness, obviously. You alluded to it a little bit, medical, physical fitness. We have all those priorities, and I've been fortunate enough as an enlisted person to sit through those high-level briefings every month on readiness. So what does that actually mean? And I know you said earlier that the airmen being ready, but how much of an impact does that have, and what does readiness mean?
I really see it as fairly simple. It means, am I ready to go do my job? And is my family ready for me to go do my job? And if the answer to either one of those is no, then what are we doing to ensure that we're going to be ready when the flag goes up, that we're able to do those things? So, we track lots of training requirements. We track statistics. We're looking at spreadsheets and graphs of different things. But more importantly than that, it really goes down to, do I have that warrior mentality that when my nation calls, when my state calls, that I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do what's ever asked of me, and I have everything else ready to go so that they can support my ability to do that.
And then from the Air National Guard perspective, what does a citizen airman bring to the fight that might be different than our active duty counterparts?
I think that is probably one of the most amazing things about the National Guard, and probably one of the things that's maybe a best kept secret, is we are so much more than just an AFSC. Most of our airmen have incredible experience in their AFSC. We have maintainers that literally have worked on the same airplane for decades and decades, and some cases are working on the same airplane that their parent worked on years ago. So incredible levels of experience. We also have incredible experience outside of our AFSC that we bring to the fight as well. So we might have, somebody who's a teacher, a doctor, has a certain civilian skill set that they bring along with their AFSC. And there's countless stories of we're in deployed locations, and it might be a young airman, that it has a three skill level, but yet in the civilian world, they have some amazing capabilities that we're able to leverage in an incredible way. So it's really amazing, actually, what the Guard brings to the fight.
And then I guess last question within the world stage, but the Nebraska Air National Guard's impact on the national defense strategy. We have a couple mission sets in the state, but what do we bring to the fight? What do we have to offer?
So when you look at the four main priorities of the national defense strategy, all four of those priorities touch on the mission sets that we have here in the National Guard. So we're literally critical to accomplish all the things that are required under the national defense strategy. And then, the second part too is with our Title 32 domestic role. That's an incredible capability as well that we also maintain here in the state.
We look at the impact that we have. We look at the organization. I vividly remember October of 2023, and we come into drill, and you're upstairs and you're giving our briefing, and just the immediate impact that our aircraft, our people were able to have. But after the attack by Hamas in Israel, can you kind of describe the days and weeks after that and how information flowed that kind of painted that picture of what it looks like to present forces?
There's a couple different ways that we support those operations. So you have some planned support that we have. So whether you're talking about the normal rotations that we have, those are going on continuously. We also do some things. One of them is called long-term MPA. So we actually have, an aircraft and crews that are essentially on call for missions that pop up. And then there's also emergent requirements that we have where really through the Air Mobility Command and the way that they provide taskings, they essentially just start asking for resources that are available. We saw it during the Hamas attack. We saw it during the Afghanistan withdrawal. We saw it, you go back to Libya. I mean, there have been countless, 9/11 is another example, but countless examples over the years of, when something bad happens somewhere in the world, they just start reaching out for resources. And it's been incredible to see the response, hands down. I can't think of a single thing that's happened where we haven't had people just immediately raising their hand saying, hey, send me, I'm ready to go. We actually have had cases where, people are seeing stuff on the news and they're showing up at the base where we haven't even gotten a tasking yet, and they're saying, "Hey, I'm ready to go. What do you need me to do?" So it's really been an incredible experience to watch over the last 25 plus years that I've been in the National Guard, to really see the way that our airmen step up every time that they're called.
And with that, if something were to happen and they do raise their hand, hey, I want to go do this. At the end of the day, they have to be able to deploy, which goes back to that basic thought of readiness. So how much does it matter that we have our shots done? We have our active physical fitness test. We have all of those things in order. So when that does happen, can you present forces as the Adjutant General? Does those simple readiness items that we see in our brief monthly matter to what you're capable of doing?
It absolutely matters tremendously. It makes it way easier for us to get folks out the door when we need to get them out the door, when we're not worried about some little things and things that we have to do. So being ready to go just makes it so much easier when those things happen.
Was there anything else you want to touch on, like the federal mission and presenting forces or anything like that?
The one thing that I will say that I think maybe people don't completely understand about the National Guard and our missions, especially flying the aircraft that we do, we maintain continuous readiness. So we have really, in our operational capability statement, we have a 72-hour response. So really we say, you know what, we can essentially respond and go anywhere in the world within 72 hours of notice. There's a lot of service components that their units don't have that same requirement to be continuously ready. They will deploy, they'll come back out of a deployment, they'll have some downtime, then they'll have some training time where they're getting ready, and then they'll deploy. Whereas for us, we maintain continuous readiness, 24/7, 365. So, and the interesting thing is, I alluded to, over the years, we've demonstrated that time and time again.
And with our tankers and what they're able to support, again, people think it's a boring aircraft or it's an old aircraft, and some of that might be true, especially on the age. But those planes also matter. And when we think about, the deterrence and what we're capable of doing, how does the overall fleet of tankers and the Air National Guard play into that big picture?
So there is no major operation that's going to occur without tanker support. And roughly 60% of the tankers reside in the National Guard. So, the tankers are an incredibly critical aspect of any type of mission that's going to occur within the Air Force.
As we look at what we're doing at Offutt and the 170th Group and supporting the RC-135 aircraft, what are some unique capabilities that we have up there that are also supporting that federal mission?
So ISR, intelligence, reconnaissance and surveillance is another aspect which the Air Force is not going to do anything without having an ISR capability. So now the thing about the 170th Group is there's a lot of things that they do that are highly classified. So I'm not going to be able to get into a lot of specifics other than just saying that they are a critical resource that is incredibly important to lots of different things going on throughout the world.
Thank you, sir. Talking about just our state mission, and I know as a recruiter, that is one of the things that separates us from active duty in the reserves. And it's awesome to be able to tell the story of how we support our state and other states around the country. Our most recent state activation that wasn't in Nebraska was the activation for the hurricanes down in Florida. So how does that look? How are we able to go to other states? How do people request our support? What does that look like at your level?
So every disaster starts locally. So when a disaster happens, there's an incident commander who's responding. And when that incident commander realizes that they don't have the resources necessary that they need to deal with whatever that is, then there's a process that they go through to start requesting those resources. So here in Nebraska, we have the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, which, as I said earlier, falls under General Strong and the governor. So that incident commander will work with NEMA to start requesting additional resources. NEMA will work with the Joint Force Headquarters Joint Operations Center, which we stand up in any type of emergency, and then we figure out what resources are needed, what kind of capabilities we have, the availability of those resources, and then figuring out the ability to start employing those resources. So it's pretty easy and quick within the state. Several years ago, they also implemented the Emergency Management Assistant Compact, which really facilitates and enables states to be able to share resources from the different disciplines as well as reimbursements across state lines. So in the case of a hurricane, for example, the states will be standing up their emergency management agencies. They'll be communicating across state lines, communicating what those resources are that are needed, and then the states that have those resources and have those resources available can let the state that needs them know and start coordinating, and then there's a process for employing those and then also for the funding stream that follows after that.
And so I've been at Joint Force Headquarters for about 4 years, and last week was the first time I actually went back into NEMA and saw what that looks like back there and their awesome setup and how you're able to control everything from that perspective. So when you look at the wildfires in California and some of those events that unfolded, I finally learned what an EMAC request is, Emergency Management Assistance. That was your EMAC. So I finally learned how states request resources and go out there. So from your level or tag level or even the Governor Pillen level, what are they looking at to go support California or any other states?
A lot of it really is just trying to get the correct resources to the incident commander in the most timely and efficient way. So the interesting thing when we have these emergencies that happen, everybody wants to do everything they possibly can to help, but sometimes more is not always better. And so there has to be a process to be able to kind of filter through those resources so that they're not just being overwhelmed. I remember it was actually flooding down in Texas several years ago, and I was sitting in a meeting and the Adjutant General of Texas was on the line, and he was asking people to stop sending people to the flooding because they were being overwhelmed with people that were wanting to help, and they just didn't have the resources to support those people. So it's really just trying to streamline and figuring out, okay, what resources are the closest, the quickest to get there, require the least, the smallest logistical tail to implement things like that, that all play into those decisions.
And then as we stay in Nebraska, and I think our domestic response has really been highlighted over the last 5 to 10 years and what we're capable of doing. What does that look like from Governor Pillen, whether it's the things I can immediately think of, wildfire support, which seems ongoing and we're going to be doing that for a while, tornado response last year for security, or obviously the flooding back in 2019. But what does that look like? And from your perspective as the Assistant Adjutant General, when you start seeing these things on the news, what's going through your mind?
General Pillen, I've heard him talk about this a lot in his interactions. He is incredibly grateful for the sacrifice of the Nebraska National Guard. I mean, he's seen the types of things that we've been a part of, and just I think it's actually quite amazing when people see the different types of things that we're involved in, and just the attitude that we bring, the capabilities, and just the selfless spirit that our folks exhibit when they do these things. And as you pointed out too, it's pretty incredible. Over my time in the Air National Guard, I mean, we've done fires, flooding, hurricanes all across the U.S. We've done civil support, pandemics, just about any type of natural disaster, anything, we've responded to it in some way or another. And I've had the fortune of being on some of those missions, and so seeing firsthand when you're down there helping people when they're really hurting and really need help, it's a pretty cool thing to be a part of.
And similar to the federal mission, I believe there are specific requirements that our members need to maintain to be able to be activated on state active duty, which I think goes back to the readiness. But what are maybe some things that you've seen as we try to activate our members that might hinder our capabilities?
It usually falls down to just some of those real basic things like medical requirements, and they're things that aren't a huge deal, but it takes time to make sure that somebody has everything that they need to step out the door. It might be equipment, uniform stuff, other things like that. But especially when you're talking about, these types of emergencies, there's not really time to do those things. So if you're not ready to go when you're needed, it really does not help the cause at all.
So when we look around the world, sir, we're looking at China. We're looking at the information domain of warfare, right? Or not warfare, but within your dime approach. And the information is obviously a very significant part, and influence comes within that. The other unique capability we have is our state partnership program. I guess our first one and our longest tenured one has been the Czech Republic. What are things that you've seen since the Russia-Ukraine war, and just describe that SPP program?
Sure. So, interestingly enough, when the Ukraine-Russia war broke out, the first phone call that the Ukrainians made were to their state partner, which is California. So that kind of highlights really, what happens or how these relationships are utilized. So, for the Czech Republic, as you alluded to, we've had that relationship for a long time. It goes back 31 plus years. The concept for the state partnership program was you had these former Soviet countries that were no longer under Soviet rule that wanted to be a part of NATO. So how would we help these countries develop their militaries, become part of NATO, and really become a partner that would be a long-term success story, and how we could work with their military. So, with the Czech Republic, we have a huge Czech population here in Nebraska, so it was kind of a natural fit for us to start that relationship with the Czechs. And when it started, it was a lot of the more tactical level engagements, but it has really matured and grown over time, whereas now it's incredible. We're doing peer level exchanges, we're doing joint exercises, modernization efforts. The Czechs have upgraded they've gotten rid of their Soviet helicopters, upgraded with the H-1 Venom and Viper that the Marine Corps flies. They're in the process of upgrading their fighters to F-35s. They're very focused on multi-domain operations, agile combat employment. Their military spending as a function of GDP exceeds the NATO goal. They have some great cyber and cybernetic capabilities. They're Israel's strongest European ally. So really, when you look at where they are now as a military and what they contribute in that theater, they are truly a shining example of why that state partnership program is important and how it can be beneficial and how you can develop it over time.
And I think about Chief Horn's retirement, and the Czechs being represented. We just had an engagement with the recruiting Czech Republic over the last week, but it's more than just us flying a flag in the atrium and spending money. Like this is trust. This is people. These are real ties. So what are some unique things you've been able to experience within the Czech Republic?
Probably the thing that really has resonated with me the most is the appreciation that the Czechs have for the Americans. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to Pilsen celebration where they honor what the forces did in World War II, and there was literally lines of it was American GI vehicles from World War II, people dressed up in American military uniforms. It was like you step back, into the 1940s, seeing this parade of vehicle, and it was just vehicle after vehicle after vehicle, waving American flags, and so there is a tremendous appreciation for the Americans. And so it's been very easy to work when we go over there. They are just incredibly warm towards us, just incredible hosts. And so it's very easy to really, it becomes a lot more than just a professional engagement. It really becomes a friendship that you build over time. You get to know their families, you get to know a lot about them. And really that's kind of the core of the state partnership program. It is much more than just a military engagement.
And when we look around the world and we see Africa, and we see the Belt and Road Initiative and some of the countries that are trying to be influenced one way or the other, we've expanded now to 2 African countries with Rwanda and Tanzania. So I'll start with Rwanda, and what are maybe some of their needs or some differences that we've experienced with that partnership?
Yeah, you touched on it. There's some very different challenges in the AFRICOM theater. So, as you mentioned, our global competitors are very active on the continent due to the rich potential resources there. Africa is projected to be about a quarter of the world population over the next 10 years. Deadly terrorism is metastasized in many areas throughout Africa. About 75% of the aid that goes to Africa is into areas that have conflict occurring. food insecurity is a huge deal over there. So, but the good thing is, dollars and troops go a long way when it comes to Africa as well. So there's a very high rate of return on our investment. The SPP makes up less than 1% of the budget in AFRICOM, but the SPP provides about 30% of the engagements that we have with African nations. Now, our focus with Rwanda and then our newest partner, Tanzania, really are much more focused kind of at that tactical level. So things like NCO development, military reform and professionalism, emergency management, agriculture, medical, engineering, disaster response, things like those.
And then with our second partner being Tanzania. So how does that work? So it's not we just pick a country and hey, we're going to be partners, but what does that look like at the higher level, and how did we end up with Tanzania?
Rwanda, we had I think we established that partnership back in 2019. We've had some limitations, so we also work with the State Department in how we do those, and really they have some influence on the types of things that we do. So there were some limitations, and so Tanzania is next door neighbor to Rwanda, and so Tanzania had expressed a desire to also join the state partnership program. So for us, the fact that you have next door neighbors, there was some synergy in really being able to maybe combine some efforts there in how we approach that. So the National Guard Bureau, they put out a list annually where they're adding additional partners, and so they let people know what countries are out there, and then there's actually a competitive process where states put in a package to be considered, and then NGB evaluates those packages and makes their selection.
And then now we've learned that General Strong's a movie star over in Tanzania after this most recent exercise, which is pretty cool. With our new partnership in Tanzania, how does the process look from that level to acquire a new state partner?
Annually, National Guard Bureau through the State Partnership Program actually puts out a list of countries that are seeking to become part of the program. So that list is disseminated to the states, and then the states take a look and see if there's any that they feel are a good fit for them, and they'll put a package together that's a competitive process, and then NGB selects those states based off of the package.
And then from the big picture perspective, what are some areas of opportunity, or how does your lens look for the state partnership program as a whole?
Since we already have our Czech partner in EUCOM, we have a couple partners in AFRICOM. We look at the landscape out there, and obviously with China and the Communist Party, that really poses the most significant pacing threat for us out there. So I was at a conference a couple years ago. General Minahan, who was the previous commander of Air Mobility Command, was challenging us. He said, our nation, if we look at our nation's history, we're really awesome after we get slapped. So how do we get awesome before we get slapped? And what are we doing different today because of what we know about China? So, as we thought about that here in Nebraska, we thought about, okay, how does that apply to the state partnership program? So last summer, had the privilege of going out to Guam to see our folks that were deployed out there. So on the way back, we did stop in at the Indo-PACOM headquarters to just kind of talk about some state partnership opportunities. And then we got invited back in the fall for the planning conference that they were having with the Indo-PACOM commander. And there he was really just stressing how important building additional relationships in that theater are. We look at the 10,000-mile supply line in the Pacific, the limited capacity that's available, the importance of agile combat employment, multi-capable airmen, multi-domain operations. That whole concept of decentralized execution is going to be critical. Some people ask, hey, all of those things, what does that look like? There's a show that was real popular. It was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, called Baba Black Sheep, and it was about a F-4 Marine Corps fighter squadron that was deployed to the Pacific during World War II. And they really kind of exemplify that concept of how we're going to have to operate in the Pacific to be successful. So, going to that conference, they really stressed how there's some future opportunities in Indo-PACOM, and just because of how important that is, that's an area that we're going to continue to look at and hopefully maybe figure out a way that we could eventually develop a partnership with somebody in the Pacific.
So for our airmen, if they want to get involved, and we know being guardsmen, we all have unique capabilities and maybe some things we don't see. So how does that look if we have airmen that either have an interest in the SBP or maybe they have some unique talents that they would be an awesome fit for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Talk with your chain of command first and foremost. Let them know that that's something that you're potentially interested in. I'd love to have folks come over and talk to the Joint Force Headquarters staff. The state partnership program is managed over here at Joint Force Headquarters, so we can answer additional questions, provide some additional information, maybe fill in some blanks on how those capabilities might be utilized. So come over and ask questions. We always love the opportunity to talk with our airmen and help us all get smarter on ways that we can do the mission.
So wrapping up this interview, General, we've been through a period of a lot of changes coming down from the national level. And how do we, at our level within the state, regardless of rank, how do we embrace change, and how do we control what we can control and stay focused on the mission?
Most people in general don't like change, and change really has become somewhat of a constant. And not only that, it really seems like the pace of change continues to accelerate all the time. It's very difficult to adjust to, but if we're going to grow, if we're going to improve, you have to be willing to embrace change. There's nothing that ever remains static. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So I think oftentimes once we just figure that out and accept it, it just makes it easier to understand that change is an essential part of improving.
And then as we're hearing different messages and we're having some impacts on the federal force, what do we need to be focused on, or how do we need to receive our information to make sure that we are tuned into the right message?
There's just a lot of information coming down right now, and really as members of the profession of arms, our role is look at the organization and figure out what are those things that we can do to become more efficient, to be better, to improve. Are there areas of waste that we have to cut out? Are there things that we've been doing for a long time that when we take a look at them right now, they don't really make sense? They don't make us more combat ready or lethal, or they're not in the best interest of our airmen. So I really see it as a great opportunity for us as an organization to really just take some time and focus and take a good hard look at ourselves and figure out, okay, what can we do to really help our airmen be able to succeed doing the mission?
And as the Assistant Adjutant General, you've been in a couple of different branches. You've been able to see the world in active duty, now Guard. What are some lessons learned and just some experiences that you've had as somebody that's been in the military for more than a couple of years?
I don't think I ever could have imagined just some of the incredible, amazing experiences that I've been afforded during my time in the military. It's just, there's no way I can even really put it into words, some of the things that I've been able to be a part of. I think the thing that stands out to me the most really is, I think most of us really just underestimate the strategic impact of the Nebraska Air National Guard and the incredible privilege that it is to be serving our state and our nation at such a critical point in history. The things that we're doing each and every day are just vitally important to safeguarding our way of life, and our airmen really, truly exemplify the best that this nation has to offer.
And as somebody, we all live in this finite period of time, but as the Assistant Adjutant General, you're in a very unique position. So what is hopefully the legacy that you'll leave, or the message that you'd have through the duration in this position?
The number one question that I always ask myself at the end of the day is, am I making us better warfighters each and every day? And are we more ready to respond to whatever the state needs of us each and every day? So if we can say yes, that everything that we're doing is about making us better warriors and making us better airmen, then I'll consider that a success. And
then what's your final message, I guess, that we have this period of time in this podcast to our men and women within the organization?
I guess I'll make my closing, just kind of take it back to really the big picture. One of the most amazing things that's been bestowed on this great nation is our freedom, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness endowed by our Creator. But freedom is something that most take for granted. It requires incredible cost to protect. Thankfully, we have men and women of character who believe in this country enough to put life and limb on the line without qualification, without thought of personal gain. Generations of Nebraskans that perform remarkable acts of selflessness to a cause decidedly bigger and more important than themselves. They make the world a better place. It's truly an incredible privilege that I have to serve alongside these men and women, and I'm incredibly grateful for their sacrifice. May God continue to bless the Nebraska National Guard.
Thank you, sir. And I know I've been super fortunate just to get the time that I've had with you through the years. And your focus of lethality and readiness is something that we can continue to be awesome enlisted people, awesome officers, and go forward. But this message delivering to our airmen at every level, I think, is a powerful one. So I appreciate the time today. Thank you so much for the great conversation as always. But it's super special that we get to have these conversations and have somebody of your caliber in your position, sir. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. And I always look forward to the time that you and I have together to be able to talk about these things, and grateful for the opportunity to share it with some of our airmen. And I would encourage all of our airmen, if there's questions that they have that are triggered after this conversation, I'm always happy to answer more questions and hopefully help them have a better understanding of what we're all about.
Well, thanks, sir.
What a powerful conversation hearing Brigadier General Hargens talk about his years with the military, where we've come from as a unit, but also where we're headed. It's inspiring, and Senior Master Sergeant Eddy always is a solid voice for the force. It's these kind of interviews that give us a bigger picture, and I hope it got you thinking about your role in the future too. And since we're talking about impact, let's do a quick callback. Gig Eagle, which we covered in episode 3 and 4. And if you have not listened to any of those, go back and listen to them because they are awesome. Gig Eagle is already making waves. Since those episodes dropped, we have had many of you complete your profiles and get added to the site. If you haven't done that yet, now's your chance. Visit gigeagle.mil from a CAC-enabled computer, set up your profile, and get yourself in the system. Then you can link it to an email and log in without a CAC next time. And if you've already found success on the platform, tell us. We want to hear how it's working for you. Let's turn the spotlight to what's happening across the Nebraska National Guard. At the 155th Metals Technology Shop, innovation is booming. The team recently developed new ways to fabricate parts locally, saving money, increasing efficiency, and potentially setting a model for the entire Air Force. Governor Jim Pillen, alongside members of the Army and Air National Guard, honored dozens of Vietnam War veterans in a heartfelt ceremony. It's always powerful to see those who served long before us being recognized for their sacrifices. Big news out of Wahoo, they've officially broken ground on a major expansion of the Army Readiness Center, the first real update since 1961. This is a huge step forward in building better facilities for future missions. The 170th has been busy too. They deployed for the first time as a unit and supported the 55th Wing during their CRI, that's CRI, Combat Readiness Inspection at Offutt. This wasn't just any inspection, it involved the local police department and a full sweep of Offutt Air Force Base personnel. Talk about a comprehensive effort. And finally, over 200 members came together at the Joint Force Adjutant General's Strength in Unity Leadership Symposium. This forum was all about collaboration, helping Guardsmen learn how to lead and face challenges head on. All right, let's move on to what's coming up. The base 5K, unfortunately, was postponed due to a surprise April cold front, but don't worry, a new update or a new date is coming soon. So now you've got more time to lace up and get ready. Look for the QR codes around the base to register, and once that new date is announced, we will announce that as soon as possible. Coming up in June, the 155th will dive into the CRE, that's CRE, Combat Readiness Exercise. This is a major movement for the wing, and we know you'll rise to the challenge. You always do. During May Drill Weekend, we'll see many of you participating in or supporting the Lincoln Marathon. Whether you're running or volunteering, be safe, stay hydrated, and enjoy one of Lincoln's favorite traditions. Then in July, we've got a big one, the Nebraska National Guard Showcase. This will give invited guests a behind-the-scenes look at what we do and how we do it. A proud moment for all of us. Also, we have a opportunity for your family members out there. It's called Camp Recharge. It'll be June 13th through the 15th in 2025, and Venture and Wellness for the military families. And their flyer says, calling all military members, pack your bags for a weekend full of adventure, relaxation, and family fun. We're combining the thrill of the outdoors and the benefit of wellness activities designed just for you. Watch for upcoming activity schedule. You can register online at www.ateusausa.org/camp-recharge. Go register today for that event, June 13th through the 15th. A quick note on this Camp Recharge event. Tree Topper Cabins, RV site, tenting, and breakfast, lunch, and supper will be provided. Take your families out there and enjoy the weekend. And one last planning note, the 2026 drill schedule is officially out. If you haven't seen it, grab those dates and get them on your calendar. Planning now helps make next year smoother for everyone. Okay, it's safety time. As the weather warms up and summer starts creeping in, it's time again to talk about the 100 critical days of summer. Memorial Day through Labor Day is when we historically see the most accidents, and our goal this year is 0 mishaps, 0 fatalities. The top risks? Well, do you remember any of them from episode 4? Well, Jarrell told you some of them. Well, if you don't remember them, here they are now. Again, they are motor vehicle accidents, including motorcycles, and water-related injuries like water skiing, boating, and tubing. If you're heading out to the lake, riding and or traveling, be smart, be prepared, and look out for each other. Each accident is preventable, so one accident is one too many. Let's do our part together. Well, that's going to wrap up episode 5, but before we go, I want to hear from you. This podcast is for our airmen, soldiers, families, and supporters, and want it to reflect what you care about the most. Hit that anonymous feedback link in the description below and tell us what topics you'd like to hear in future episodes. A few people have done this already, and here are some of the topics they've included as well. The TSP and retirement planning, career progression advice, TRICARE and healthcare resources, and building a plan now for the future you want. These are great suggestions, and we're looking forward to covering them soon. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with our fellow guardsmen. The podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Podbean, and so much more. And of course, if you want to be a co-host or guest, drop us a line through the feedback form. We want your voice to be included in this podcast as well. That's it for this month, from sharing leadership insights to celebrating our Guard family's wins. I hope this episode gave you something valuable to take away. Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay connected, and keep fueling that mission. This is the Phantom Fuel Podcast, and we'll see you next month.